19 hours GMT. Good evening and welcome to News 360 from the News Hub here in Accra. I am Issa Moni.
And I'm Natalie Ford. To look at the top stories this evening.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by
National Population Council says surge in population should be a source of concern for Ghana due to the poor handling of population issues.
Takoradi Circuit Court remands 2 persons in prison custody for attempting to traffic 47 people to Conakry, Guinea.
And in business this evening, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Etuahine lauds government's plans to raise 2 billion cedis to clear debts owed by collapsed UT and Capital banks.
And on the foreign front, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson cut short his first trip to Africa over pressing work schedule.
We've got the details of these stories for you here on News 360, including news from the world of sports and entertainment. And as always, you're streaming live all across the world on 3news.com as well as TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Let's get started with our very first story this evening. An Accra Circuit Court judge, Justice Aboagye Tandor, has expressed displeasure over the delay in the case involving some 12 individuals accused of escaping from lawful custody from the Kwabena police station in Accra. Justice Tandor cautioned that he will not countenance any further delays after the prosecutor, Chief Superintendent Kweku Bempah, told the court's investigation was ongoing after several attempts to commence trial. Here's a report by Godfred Tanam.
The accused persons sat in the courtroom expecting the prosecution to announce it was ready to commence trial. To their disappointment, the prosecutor, Chief Superintendent Kweku Bempah, told the court he had not completed investigations and will need more time to furnish the court with progress of work. This did not go down well with the accused persons, whose disappointment was clearly evident on their faces. The presiding judge, Justice Aboagye Tandor, did not take this kindly. He gave the prosecutor, Superintendent Bempah, a strong rebuke. He asked him to stop putting up excuses, which he said was delaying the trial. Justice Tandor had earlier set March 9, 12, 14 and 15 to fast-track the trial. It will be recalled that 7 suspected criminals escaped from lawful custody from the Kwabena police station on January 21. The 7 were assisted by a group to escape from police custody. The attack led to the death of 1 police officer at the station. 2 others involved in the cell break, Prince Osei and Atakojo, are already serving 30 months imprisonment each.
Also in the news tonight, the Takoradi Circuit Court, presided over by Justice Rita Doku, has remanded 2 persons in prison custody for attempting to traffic 47 people to Conakry, Guinea. The 2 were also charged with preparing to operate a small-scale mining business without license.
Giving the facts of the case, the prosecutor, ASP Isaac Mensah Apinting, told the court that about a month ago, the accused persons, Tanihu Azuma Donik and Andrews Alimo Yogako, both aged 35 years, arrived in Ghana from Conakry, where they operate small-scale mining without a license. They successfully recruited 47 Ghanaians between the ages of 18 and 58 years to send them to Guinea for their mining work. On March 1, 2018, at about 3:30 p.m., the 47 Ghanaians, together with 28 pieces of Shangfer engines, 47 pieces of water hoses, 7 bundles of blankets, 32 pieces of water pumps, and 32 pieces of pipe mining equipment were loaded into a canoe owned by the accused, after which they set sail from Akplagbanya Beach in Adar, in the Greater Accra region, en route to Guinea. However, on reaching Nkotongpo, a suburb of Sekondi in the western region, the boat headed for the beach to pack up additional equipment. On March 5 at about 11 a.m., the Marine Police at Takoradi received information about the presence of the boat and moved to arrest them at sea. The accused persons, together with the 47, were all in court when the case was called on Wednesday, March 7. The commander of the Marine Police, ACP Seydou Idi, told TV3 that the 47 Ghanaians have been released since they were just victims.
The 47 people, we sought the permission of the court to release them because we considered our investigations proved that they were victims. They were recruited by the two main suspects. So soon after the court, we released the 47 people to go back to where they came from.
However, the two, Tanihu Azuma Donik and Andrews Alimo Yogako, will reappear before the Justice Rita Doku in court on March 15, 2018. In some other news this evening, Minister for Employment and Labour Relations has disagreed with the assertion that the ban on small-scale mining has led to the increased spate in armed robbery. Speaking at a public dialogue at the University of Ghana, Ignatius Bafo Ewa noted there was no study to back that view.
Our ecology was in danger. Most of our green cover was being taken away. Most of our water bodies were being destroyed. The turbidity of the water, various water bodies we have, especially within the southern sections of the country, was so bad, and they were not even good for drinking. So we needed to take some action. But if you really checked, when we started that action, it was about the same time we launched the Planted for Food and Jobs. So one was expecting that those who would be displaced by that particular action will be absorbed by the Planted for Food and Jobs program. Unfortunately, what perhaps we didn't do is to study the attraction of leaving one job for the other, because the monies they make from Galamsey perhaps is far higher than what they will make in agriculture. But if I were in any other environment, I would have agreed perhaps with the assertion that it is the fight against Galamsey which has actually led to the spate of armed robbery. Until perhaps we will see a clear study which points to that. It will be too erroneous for us to conclude that it is the fight against Galamsey which has actually led to the upsurge of armed robbery within the country.
Tonight, some workers of Goldfields Ghana Limited, TAQWA, clashed with security forces Monday morning as they embarked on a demonstration. 7 workers were arrested. The mining workers were demonstrating to put pressure on management of the gold mining company to rescind its decision to lay off over 2,000 workers. Thousands of workers gathered at the forecourt of the company's clubhouse amidst drumming and dancing as early as 6 a.m. According to the workers, as they were singing, drumming and dancing, the military and armed police personnel who were dispatched to the company's premises to restore calm rather started firing warning shots and tear gas. The mine workers accused management of Goldfields of compelling them to sign letters of redundancy immediately after a court ruling. They also indicated that some of their colleagues were made to sign fixed-term contracts. Right, on News 360 tonight is Adam Bona, who is a security analyst, and we're going to be speaking to him through Skype. And Adam, good evening, and many thanks for your time.
Good evening, and good evening to your cherished viewers here.
Right, about this workers' demo, Goldfields workers' demo. I mean, we've seen videos, we've seen pictures of bullets and pellets all over the place. I mean, is it really right to use military to quell workers' demonstration? How does it come across to you? Hello, Adam?
I usually do analysis. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Yes, what I'm saying is that myself and some of my colleagues who analyze issues to do with security and safety have spoken against using the military in civilian areas. And so, first of all, I would say we shouldn't be using the military for such operations. And probably if the military were not involved, we wouldn't have had this heavy-handedness we have had today. That has had its own spillovers where people have had various degrees of injuries. And these people obviously were fighting for a particular cause to ensure they are able to keep themselves in employment. And so to that, I want to also add that within the law, if you want to demonstrate, the law requires we have the freedom to assemble, the freedom to demonstrate, but the law requires us to inform the police that we want to do it at this time and at what time, and these are the routes we are going to use. And the police would have to provide us adequate protection and, shepherd us to whatever we want to do. But looks like the reportage, I have not really intercepted any document that purports to suggest that the demonstrators who demonstrated today actually went through that process of informing the police. If that was not done, somehow I would say that that was an illegality also on the part of the demonstrators, even though I would say that the amount of force that probably was used, I would say, was not proportionate to people who were not armless people. And so I wouldn't say, I would want to say the military shouldn't have been used and proper processes should have been followed.
Right, Adam, I'm grateful for it. I think you've summed it up so nicely that the military shouldn't have been used, because we've seen photographs of bullets, and we're just worried about the consequences if a stray bullet had hit any worker. I mean, the consequence wouldn't have been worth it.
That's correct, yeah.
All right.
If somebody would have died, then probably this would have degenerated into something else, and we don't expect that. The military have not been trained to deal with demonstrators and all that. And so it is difficult in this part of our world where the military will find a convenient way of bringing in the military. I think we have to relook at what we are doing as a nation in terms of security. Thank you.
We're grateful for your time, Adam. Have a wonderful evening. Adam Bona is a security analyst, and he was speaking to us through Skype.
News 360 Skype interview is brought to you by MTN. Everywhere you go.
Let's turn to some other top stories this evening. And the National Population Council says the surge in population should be a source of concern for Ghana due to the poor handling of population-related issues. Ghana's population has increased from 24.5 million in the last census in 2010 to 29.6 million. The executive director of the National Population Council, Dr. Letitia Appiah, spoke with Felix Akoyam.
Ghana's population growth rate is estimated at 2.5% annually. In 2010, when the last census was conducted, the country's population stood at 24.5 million. Nearly 8 years after, that figure has shot up to 29.6 million, according to annual growth rate estimates from the Ghana Statistical Service. Rising unemployment, housing deficit, inadequate health personnel and facilities, and other key problems facing the nation confirm the fear of many regarding the sharp rise of Ghana's population.
We've not prepared for the upsurge in population. Day in, day out, there are a lot of birth rates, although there are death rates as well. But looking at the influx of neighbors from other countries into our country, I think we've not made real progress. Government is not putting on systems to take care of the sudden upsurge of people. Look at the recent crime rates in the country. These are all part of population going high, and we've not made provisions for it.
Do we have the resources available or the budgetary allocation to cater for the exploding rate of the development? It is good we are developing, we are expanding. Take China, for instance. There are many, but they're able to maximize their resources to provide for their citizenry. But in Ghana, we are almost 30 million now. But the more we grow, the less resources we have.
Just like many Ghanaians, the National Population Council believes the population boom is worrying.
We should be a little worried because at a growth rate of 2.5, it means that we are going to double our population in 28 years. Every 28 years, we're going to double. And if we're growing that fast, it means that we're getting a lot of babies, young people, you know, and you know that in as much as all of us consume, babies and children don't produce anything. They consume our time, they consume our energies, they consume our money, because we have to take care of them.
Almost 40% of the country's population is made up of the youth. A youthful population is good for any country, but it becomes a problem when majority of the people who fall within these brackets are dependents. Executive Director of the National Population Council, Dr. Letitia Appiah, believes the only positive way out of Ghana's rising population is commitment to develop her people.
I don't know whether you have seen the Africa Agenda 2063. It is a really important document I would urge you all media to look at. It talks about the Africa we want, which should be better than the one we have now. And it is focusing on the human resource. It is moving away from the numbers to human lives. So it's the lives that we are talking about, not just the numbers. You know, he's talking about inclusive development, people-centered, developing Africa by Africans. We cannot develop Africa by Africans if we are not skilled. And we cannot get skilled if we're not having quality education. And we cannot have quality education if we are not healthy. And if you are malnourished, you can't get all these.
The United Nations projects population of African continent will double to about 2.4 billion in 2050.
Now, there certainly are two sides of the coin in this issue. On one hand, it could be good, and on another hand, it's pretty negative. And this rising growth of population in our country has been described as a demographic explosion because, like we know, countries like China have made use of it, and it's been beneficial. However, the issue of growth and economic growth and education and having a skilled workforce plays that and could be negative if the country isn't strong in that regard. I'm going to run us by the numbers here as it's pretty staggering. Now, this is the population in Ghana from the year 1960. Now, Ghana's population as at 1960 was 6.7 million. That's the population and was manageable at the time. Ghana's population as at 1970 rose to 8.6 million. A pretty, not too staggering, but a considerable growth there. And an estimated population that's at 2000 was 18.9 million, which is quite an increase as compared to the previous year. And 24.51 million, that's Ghana's population recorded in the year 2010 population and housing census. And 29.6 million is the current estimated population of Ghana. So you can see the numbers here, and that's why the concern, Issa, by many is whether it's a positive thing or it's a negative thing, and if we have the resources to take in these numbers.
Thank you, Natalie. I mean, we have to look at it, whether it will bring us some positive or negative. But it all depends on what we can do with our youth population right now. Seth Otin is Executive Director for Youth Bridge Foundation. Seth has joined me in the studio. We need to look at this huge issue confronting us. Seth, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So, I mean, what can we really tap into at the moment? Our population is 29.6 million, and then we have approximately 39% of that are youth. What can we tap into?
No, let me correct something. Okay. Close to 39% youth.
Yes.
But if you go lower, that is those below the age of 35. Youth defined as 15 to 35.
Okay.
Now, those below the age of 35 is another percentage. So you have close to 70% of Ghana's population below the age of 35.
Wow.
So that is how what is staring at our face
that
now.
one is bigger than, I mean, after 35, between 35 upwards.
Precisely.
So what can we do with that below the 35 as a country?
It has to be looked at from two angles. It projects or provides the opportunity for us to harness, tap into the potential, and have the economic benefits that we can tap out of the youth. Or neglect creates the risk that we will be sitting on a time bomb.
Agreed. But the 35 below, tap into, what do we tap into at that age? Are they properly educated? Are they properly prepared to enter industry and, you know, carry on with life? So what do we tap into at that point?
You know, population, overpopulation, as is being defined, is looked at from two dimensions. One is the proportion to the land or the space available. And the flip side of the coin is to look at the resources available and the capacity or that are being put at their disposal. Now, if we look at the resources that are put at the disposal of the youth, then issues of education, I'll put education first, education second, education third, before I bring employment. Now, if we invest in the education of the youth, then we'll be grooming the human capital that the director at the Population Council talked about, the African Agenda 2063, human focus, inclusive development that the president equally talks about. You know, these are the things. Putting education first is critical. Now, if we fail to invest in the education, I would hail, for instance, the government agenda for the free SHS. Now, you have a situation, beyond that, you have a situation where in some years, 50% of our BEC students drop out. Highest educational level at the WASI level, in some years, it's about 75% failure rate. Last year, 2017, when the failure rate was 61%, GES, right, was hailing that 61% failing, not having the opportunity to continue. You know, over some decade, 10 years ago, we had close to 89% failing math, science, and the core subjects that would help them proceed. Come to think of it, aggregate D is considered as a pass. However, it will not gain you entrance into the polytechnics or any of the universities. Now, add that, you have a chunk of the youth who truncate their education at high school level. Human capital resource, that is a challenge we have on our hand. Now, if these idle hands are there, there is the risk for the mobilization of discontent.
Absolutely.
If this discontent is mobilized, then we'll be at risk.
We don't have to wait for the discontent, should we?
Offers both an opportunity for us to harness the potential, invest in the education, at the same time, stares at our face the risk, the possibility of not doing it, and what's there. Let me say something, that the president's agenda beyond aid, brilliant. Listen to the budget, listen to various statements. He's calling for multi-stakeholder collaboration to address this need, and that is what we need. Government alone cannot do it.
Seth, I'm grateful for your time. We need really more time to address this issue about harnessing the youth potential to develop our country. We're grateful for your time. Seth Oting is the Executive Director of Youth Bridge Foundation that has been speaking to us on how to harness Ghana's youth potential to develop our country. You're watching News 360. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back to News 360. Let's delve into the world of business now. And top on the news and business this evening, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Echiahene has lauded government's plans to raise some 2 billion cedis to clear debts owed by collapsed UT and Capital banks. Speaking to TV3 Business, he said the move is a normal practice done anytime a bank becomes insolvent, that government finds money to clean the balance sheet of the receiving bank and takes over the management of the non-performing asset.
Government is hoping to issue a 2 billion cedi bond to settle the total liabilities of UT and Capital banks, estimated at 1.6 billion cedis. This follows their absorption by GCB Bank in a purchase and assumption agreement last year. Banking consultant Dr. Richmond Echiahene recalled similar measures were taken in the 1980s when a total of old 62 billion cedis of non-performing assets were identified in the banking system and replaced by Bank of Ghana bonds.
Those bonds were underwritten by FinSap. We had a donor money from Swiss and other countries which supported us. So this is not the first time we are doing that. So you're going to borrow money and give the money to GCB to take off the the non-performing. We need to look at that so that it doesn't even add on to the public sector debt.
He agreed the move may be sending the wrong signals of government coming to clean up the mess deliberately created by others, but was quick to add government has no option because not doing it may be worse.
But if government chooses not to do that, we are in serious trouble. And it is done in all jurisdictions. As I'm speaking to you, Nigeria have what we call asset management company, which is dealing with about 3 trillion debts of banks' debt. In UK, Lloyds Bank, RSB, and other banks, Northern Rock, they all have to be bailed out. And that is what it means. bonds is issued in respect of the loans for those who will take it over. And then the debt will be managed independently by GCB, so that GCB is not also put in distress.
According to Dr. Tuahini, the overriding need is for the Bank of Ghana to strengthen its banking regulations and be tough on corporate governance of banks.
The cost of the bailout, you only see 1.2. You haven't even talked about the liquidity support Bank of Ghana gave to them when they were sinking. The liquidity support is huge, because before they will be failed banks, Bank of Ghana needs to support them in the clearing system. We call the lender of last resort. That is the emergency liquidity support, and it should be done by Bank of Ghana. So
the joint receivers of the transaction, PricewaterhouseCoopers, has advertised the invitation of bids for the sale of assets of UT and Capital Banks. The deadline for the submission of bids is Monday, March 19, 2018.
Now, the Bank of Ghana has dragged the directors of some 30 microfinance companies to the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, for investigations and prosecution for alleged embezzlement and fraud. But banking consultant Dr. Richmond Tuahini says this is not enough and wants strict enforcement of banking regulations, especially corporate governance of financial institutions. Among other things, the anti-graft agency will investigate how more than 90 million Ghana cedis belonging to depositors was utilized by the microfinance companies. A source at EOCO is quoted in media reports indicating that more than 4,500 customers risked losing their lifetime savings to the stumbling microfinance companies. Many microfinance companies have in the last few months shut down their operations because of their inability to raise money to fund withdrawals. The fate of thousands of customers whose lifetime savings are locked up remains uncertain, as some directors of the distressed companies are said to have gone into hiding. Checks into the operations of some microfinance companies showed that out of 347 licensed companies, only 319 were in good standing, having fully complied with the Bank of Ghana regulations. There are currently about 50 microfinance companies that are struggling to meet their liabilities to depositors. Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana has ordered some of the microfinance companies to shut down, while others have been asked to cease taking deposits from customers. Others have been requested by the bank to reduce the number of their offices, while the highly distressed ones have been referred to EOCO for further investigations and prosecution. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of the challenges the microfinance sector, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, said the bank had taken note of the challenges and was taking steps to address them. President and CEO of Imani Center for Policy and Education, Franklin Cudjoe, has stated if the Public-Private Partnership Bill 2016 is not passed into law, Ghana will not be able to optimize opportunities to create private sector jobs. This, he explained, is needed for the country to move beyond aid.
President and Chief Executive Officer of Imani Center for Policy and Education, Franklin Cudjoe, made the statement at a public dialogue on jobs in Ghana, international best practices, national solution, which was co-organized by the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, the Center for Social Policy Studies, University of Ghana, and the World Bank. He noted the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda will not be achieved due to the lack of a comprehensive audit of the system to inform decisions on what needs to be implemented. The Imani boss added financial donations to Ghana, which is now less than 15% per year, provides the country the opportunity such as revenue mobilization, which will help in achieving the Ghana Beyond Aid.
The simple things that the Vice President started at the port were supposed to have gained us actually double of the taxes that were received if the proper manifest and attending documentation were actually came through, because customs and GRA officials were not doing the right things.
Franklin Cudjoe suggested public sector finance systems must be well thought through and well implemented.
We need to ensure that the revenues from oil, because we are going to get a lot of them, are not used and spread across initiatives that we are seeing under the Ministry for Development Special Initiative. If we did not pass the PPP bill in Parliament immediately, we may not be able to optimize opportunities to create private sector-led jobs which we need, and not necessarily public sector jobs.
The Public-Private Partnership Bill, when enacted into law, will seek to encourage and promote local content in PPP projects. Senior Director of SP&J, World Bank Group, Dr. Mikhail Retkoski, has urged government to come out with the timelines for the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda.
Ghana should have a target, go beyond aid by a certain time, and that time should be used to substitute aid by bringing in other private financial flows, both domestic and foreign, so that aid is no more needed. And I think it is a wonderful strategy, precisely is interpreted aspirationally with a deadline, with a target.
And that's all the business news we've got for you this evening on News 360. But if you could visit our website, that's 3news.com, for some more business news. On to you, Isa.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Let's continue with some more stories tonight. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, is soliciting the support of chief directors from the ministries to work out a rollout plan for government policy on aluminium and bauxite manufacturing industries. Establishing these industries within the next few months will facilitate the processing of raw aluminium and bauxite materials for export, which will in turn raise over $500 million for the country. Dr. Bawumia was addressing the opening of a 5-day workshop on macroeconomic dialogue for chief directors in Accra.
The chief directors were from the various ministries across the country and are discussing how to implement government flagship programs, including the One District, One Factory program. Also topical on their agenda for 5 days will be how to resolve the problems associated with the free senior high school policy. Issues about maintaining macroeconomic stability and prudent use of the country's natural resource will be discussed. Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia implored the chief directors to own all government programs in order to make them succeed. They should also support new initiatives and policies being spearheaded by government.
Putting in place a working railway network across the country is a very, very key part of it. We want to make sure the Eastern Line from Accra to Kumasi, the Western Line from Takoradi to Kumasi, and the Central Spine from Kumasi to Paga. These are major, initiatives that we want to make sure see the light of day, because in doing so, it puts the economy in a position to move beyond aid.
The Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, Alhaji Mohammed Tijani, entreated the chief directors to help government in creating job opportunity. The head of civil service, Nane Jekum Jamuna, assured the vice president of their strong commitment to implementing government programs.
The chief directors must lead the civil service in changing the narratives. We must initiate innovations based on government priority areas and enhance tracking and improve intersectorial collaboration so that the President's transformation agenda will be seen by all the good people of Ghana.
Recommendations from the 5-day workshop will enable government to formulate strategies to implement policy direction.
President Akufo-Addo this afternoon returned home after attending the International Solar Alliance Summit in New Delhi in India. The president was welcomed at the Kotoka International Airport by Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and the Chief of Staff, Frema Osei Opare. Other government dignitaries, including the Ministers of Interior and Defense, were present to welcome him. In India, the president, including other heads of states, discussed the provision of solar energy at equitable and affordable cost. Together with the heads of state, a memorandum of understanding called the New Delhi Declaration for prioritizing solar energy was signed. President Akufo-Addo held bilateral discussions with Indian President Narendra Modi on deepening cooperation with India. It's still live here on News 360 from the News Hub at Adisawe Kanda. We've got sports news for you in a few moments. Stay with us.
Now to some international news. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has cut short his first trip to Africa to return to Washington about 1 day ahead of schedule to deal with urgent work there. In spite of the business editor at Kenya's television network, Peter Wakanda, is certain the brief visit by U.S. diplomat served as a stamp of approval for Kenya's national airline, which offers direct flights to the United States, hence would lead to increased trade relations between the two countries.
After meeting Friday in Nairobi with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, Tillerson hailed the political reconciliation between Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga. He described it as a positive step towards healing Kenya's ethnic and political divisions. The U.S. Secretary of State during his meeting with Kenyatta shared issues surrounding the defeat of terrorism in neighboring Somalia, political unrest in South Sudan, and strengthening U.S.-Kenyan business relations. Business editor for Kenya Television Network, Peter Wakanda, spoke to TV3 on the expected outcome of Tillerson's extended visit.
So it was only expected that the 69th Secretary of State, that is Rex Tillerson, would be visiting. Now, Kenya recently got awarded Category 1 status for its international airport, that is Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And the arrival of the Secretary of State through that very airport, then it's a sort of a stamp of approval of the improvements that have been made to sort of solidify that status and to enable this lucrative route be undertaken by Kenya Airways. That is Kenya's. This Category 1 status now means that with direct flights from Nairobi to New York, a lot of Kenyans may actually be able to start to export things that they were not able to export before in terms of goods and services due to the long distances and the costs.
Well, you can visit our website, 3news.com, for some more international news. We've got entertainment news for you shortly. Stay with us.
All right, hello, good evening. Welcome to the entertainment and lifestyle news segment brought to you by Vodafone and FanMax with me, Nana Kwejuato. Yes, I got it because Natalie always calls me Ken, but it's all good. Let's move on to the very first story. The Chief Executive Officer of Xylophone Media, Nana Mensah, says the label is working hard to resolve their differences with Stonebwoy. In a tweet on Sunday evening, he urged all well-wishers of Shatta Wale GH, Stonebwoy and Xylophone Media to remain calm as their differences are being resolved amicably. The Xylophone-based tweet, or the Xylophone boss's tweet, further stated that whatever differences as with all human institutions will be resolved in the most civil and decorous fashion, and Ghana shall prosper. So now moving on to a related development, manager in charge of signings at Xylophone Media, an artist manager who is alleged to have seized the Stonebwoy's car, actually, Lawrence Nanesiama Hansen, has been sharing his side of the story. He spoke to Xylophone FM on Monday morning.
We had agreed, my office and the Beam Nation office had agreed to park the official car over the week, you know, and we had a deadline for Saturday afternoon.
Last Saturday,
yes,
you mean?
Yes, on the day of the event. And so by 12, they were supposed to bring the car to the pool for the transport manager to take over, you know, and that was an agreement we both reached. You know, I can't go into the matter that made us reach that agreement.
They are working with the car, so why do you want them to
Okay, so that's why I'm saying, good, we had reached an agreement. So we were trying to look for the car because City was around. You know, Stonebwoy drives a Benz. We don't own the Benz. Xylophone doesn't own the Benz. In my books and in my contract, what we have given to him is the Sonata.
The Hyundai Sonata.
Hyundai Sonata. So we were looking out for it. It wasn't there. So then I knew they had another show because I got there, saw the car, and I moved.
Were you guys looking for the car, or you were looking for the
So that was Lawrence Nanesiama Hansen, popularly known as Bulldog, in that conversation earlier this morning with Sammy Flex. Now, moving on still, the relationship between entertainment companies Xylophone Media and their assignee Stonebwoy keeps getting murkier by the day. The two entities are trending for all the wrong reasons. Now, what do music lovers have to say about the simmering tension between the two camps?
Management firm Xylophone Media and their signee Stonebwoy. Now the two have been in the news for all the wrong reasons. In the latest was an attempt by Xylophone officials to seize a vehicle belonging to Stonebwoy. And we are told this led to some shots being fired, and we are finding out from music enthusiasts, what do they make of this whole back and forth between Stonebwoy and Xylophone Media?
I think it's a form of disrespect, yes, because to the extent that they could go and attack him, it's very deadly. Trust me, I feel he should personally leave Xylophone.
You know, if you put two captains for one ship inside, unless you try to settle everything between them. You know, if you just go say you go sign the person, so make the person come there, make it come belittle and for the. If you want to take a car, you know they work for MTTU. Who don't work for MTTU? Who don't work for MTTU? You understand? So if they want to take the car, make them do them officially. If you not go harass the person.
Stonebwoy must respect your contract. Xylophone Media have put a lot of money in you. They are investing in you. So you must not act the way he acted.
Seizing the car, I don't think it's right. And what they did is very bad. Because of even I had an interview with Stonebwoy, and it was like the car was his own. They bought the car from America. So even if it's on a record label and it's done something wrong, that's the way to go. But I don't think what it is right. It's very wrong. It's very wrong. And I support Stonebwoy to exit the record label.
I find it very okay to have both of them under one record label. It's not a bad idea. It's very, very good. Even though they say you can have two captains on the same boat, I think two captains can work together to bring more fame, more success and more grace to the music industry.
Because if I was treated that way, I wouldn't like to stay with the record label.
For me, when I'm in the soup and I say that no, this soup does not suit me, I go out, you know, because there are more soup what we want the meat to be cooked in the soup.
The money they give Shatawale is way back more than what they give Stonebwoy. But on account of popularity internationally, Stonebwoy is ahead of Shatawale. So you see, I don't get it. They should have given more money than what they give Shatawale. They should have given more money than what they give Shatawale. So you should back off. You should just leave them and go. You should back off.
So that's about it for entertainment news this evening, brought to you by Vodafone and FanMax. We owe your day. My name is Nana Kwejuado, and that's Stonebwoy. Reactions from people out there in the street. And Abu, I don't know what you want to say about this.
Not much, but it's quite interesting, and it tells you how serious people are. I've been following these two articles about the industry, so I think it's all for the good. Let's just cut off the gun shooting.
Exactly.
So I think those things are not.
They can resolve it amicably.
Absolutely.
And it does show how passionate the youth are about their celebrities. But I mean, I understand the debates about them being the same label. Two strong musical personalities clashing.
But I must say something. Both of you are looking good in your GTP family.
We certainly are wearing Ghana.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, so that's about it.
That's it for this edition of News 360. My name is Yisa Moni.
And I'm Natalie Ford. We've got more news on our website at 3news.com and news at 10 simulcast on our sister station, 3FM 92.7. You can also join us with the hashtag We Celebrate GH on Twitter. Next is Sadia. Have a pleasant evening.